Hi! I wanted to talk about my BPD diagnosis, how I got it, the kind of process of it, that whole shebang. Just for anyone who maybe thinks they could have BPD, are going for a diagnosis, looking for a diagnosis, family members of people who may have BPD or do have BPD, blah 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 blah. I am deeply sorry about any noise and distractions. I have 9 rats. They are absolute attention whores. I got my BPD diagnosis when I was 17. Usually there is a minimum where you have to be 18 to be diagnosed, but in special cases you can be diagnosed beforehand, but the process for the diagnosis is a lot more longer and thorough compared to how it would be if you were of age for the standard diagnosis. This I'm going to put a trigger warning on because there is going to be mentions of suicide, self-harm, all that nasty stuff, but unfortunately they were things that were part of my process and unfortunately probably led to my diagnosis. So it was like, growing up, everybody knew that I was not a normal child. I had a messy childhood. I'm not going to go into the details of my childhood, but my childhood wasn't good. I don't like my childhood, and it's a very traumatic period of time for me. I had a traumatic childhood, which in hindsight is probably what triggered the BPD. People knew because of the trauma that I wasn't completely right in the head, as weird as that sounds to say about a child. Everybody knew. I was shy, I didn't make friends, I was absolutely petrified of new people. I wanted to stay in my room all day and not talk to anyone. I gave up on toys at an early age because I just decided to grow up and be mature, because I had to be the adult. Very apparent. I was overly emotional. Like everyone says I was an angel. I was never ever naughty, but I would cry over the tiniest of things. Very sensitive, scared to speak up, scared to ask for things. One of the other rats is over there in the playpen, and she is now hauling around tissue paper. I swear, they've been asleep all day, and as soon as I sit down to film, they're like, yeah, mom's awake, let's make so much noise. I don't know if my eating disorder was related to my BPD. I imagine that it was a product of the BPD, to be honest. I had anorexia, and I was under CAM's eating disorder services when I was 16 in my first year of college. I ended up leaving college because my eating disorder got so bad, and my period stopped. My liver began to fail. I got treated for that, got my liver back into gear, recovery for a good, I think, 9 months before I decided to go back to college on a different course. So I went back to college, did a different course. It was going really well. All of a sudden I was like making all of these friends. I was like so over the moon. Like I was insanely happy, like the happiest I had ever been. And bear in mind, I used to not go like a single day without breaking down and crying and like screaming at myself or hurting myself. Like I started self-harming when I was 13, I think. And all of a sudden I was having this great patch. I wasn't doing anything to harm myself in any way. I was looking after myself, I was enjoying life. And then a traumatic event happened, and all of a sudden my mental health just plummets, and I am in complete despair. I just don't show up for college. I cut off all of my friends. I get myself into really bad situations with drugs and alcohol and horrible people. I ended up in an abusive relationship. I, in this period, made 6 suicide attempts. Spent some time being reviewed by a psychiatrist. After a certain amount of time, they allowed me to be monitored from my home. So they would come in every single day. They would watch me eat to make sure I would eat. They would administer my medication, which was fluoxetine, originally at 80 milligrams. They put me on the absolute max because I was just gone. I was not a person. It was kind of like really severe depression. And then the next day I would just like call somebody random up and be like, oh my god, do you want to go and snort bath salts? Like it was a very messy time. And I didn't know what BPD was at this point. I remember I watched Girl Interrupted when I was 15 and it broke me. I was in bed for a week after watching it because it completely destroyed me and I didn't understand why. And then I got diagnosed with BPD at 17 and I was like, oh my god, maybe that is why Girl Interrupted ruined my life so much. There were a lot of hints that I had BPD. I was in and out of relationships every week, and every relationship I had up until the past 2.5 years were abusive or very toxic. The main symptoms that I exhibited were unstable relationships, as I just said, and then went on a ramble about, and I'm probably going to cut it out because it was too much information to share on the internet. Multiple suicide attempts, self-harming, eating disorder that I kept dipping in and out of.
Hi, so I am editing at the moment, and please excuse my voice because I am horribly ill. But I found some of my old notes from my mum and psychiatrists when I was going through the diagnosis stage. So I'm just going to read them to you to give you kind of like an idea of how other people perceived my symptoms. Gradual deterioration in mood, roughly over an hour, and then sudden breakdown. Crying, struggling to talk, can just about understand what I'm saying. Understand what she's saying, because obviously this is about me. So it can just about understand what she's saying, but she cannot cope. She is very frightened and unable to explain her thoughts. I sit with her throughout, trying to ground her. After roughly 10 minutes, she seems calmer but scared after what has just happened. She is unable to find the trigger of something happening before these episodes. There is no pattern of what starts the episodes.
Dissociation was a huge thing for me. I could go days just feeling nothing, doing nothing. She's trying to open the cage. Not functioning on any level, just existing. Mood swings were off the rails. I would be depressed, stuck in bed, unable to move for a full day, and I'd wake up the next day and then I would just do something completely like damaging and life-changing. And when I say I did things impulsively and like manically and reckless, I don't mean dyeing my hair. Like I dyed my hair every week, but like that was nothing compared to the levels of things that I was doing. I'm not going to go into details because a lot of the things, they're hard for me to talk about, but I was struggling with hypersexuality. I was doing substances. I was getting into situations with very, very horrible people, and it was really not a good time, and it took a long while for someone to just shut me down, basically. Medication helped with the depression, but I found the thing that helped me with my BPD was don't fight. The thing that helped me with my BPD was taking myself into a new situation with new people, away from negativity. And it's not easy, and I'm not saying that like it is. I had to move away. I was lucky enough to find my partner who gave me a place to stay and took me into a positive environment that gave me the room to heal and do therapy. And honestly, a lot of therapists and psychiatrists didn't want me. They they didn't want to treat BPD. It was too hard for them, and they'll do a session with me and be like, oh my god, she's too damaged. And it's like, it's literally your job. And suicide hotlines was something else. I once called a suicide hotline, and she was like, well, obviously you don't want to kill yourself that much if you're calling us, because you would have just done it. And I was like, okay, awesome. Thanks for the advice, love. Also, have a cup of tea in a bath. That's my favourite. Like, yes, Deborah, I want to throw myself off a bridge. Maybe I should just have a cup of tea. I never thought of that. Anyway, it's been a lot of hard work to get to a point where I think my BPD is fairly manageable. I definitely still exhibit symptoms. I definitely still have horribly bad days. I get in my own head a lot. I have to talk to my BPD. It's like my BPD is a different part of me. Like, it's part of me and I accept that it is, but it's also like this other entity in my head being like, it's like a little devil on my shoulder just constantly taunting me, and I have to be the angel and try and shut it out, and it is so hard. And some days it's easier than others. I don't think a BPD diagnosis is a death sentence, but it sure does feel like one in the moment when you hear those words come out of someone's mouth, and when you begin to research and you see all the stigma, it absolutely kills, and you think there is no way out of this, and you think you're going to be dead by the time you're 25. I didn't expect to make it to 16, and, you know, 6 times I nearly didn't make it to 21, and I think I'm 922 days clean now, which is absolutely insane, and I never thought I would be here, but I am. And this is me telling you it's absolutely possible, and it's hell. It's horrible thing to live with, but there are ways to learn to live with it. If you're someone who struggles with finding psychiatrists and therapists that actually want to help you, because unfortunately a lot of them don't, I recommend getting a therapy book, or you can download a PDF. I would link it, but this channel doesn't have enough subscribers to link it yet. But if you Google the DBT workbook, you can download it as a PDF and go through that. That is one thing that really helped me learn to manage. Cutting off any toxic people. As much as I miss them or want to get revenge, it is not worth it, and I need to focus on myself and my well-being, and me getting better and doing more for my life, for myself. You know, I was ready to go. I didn't want to be here anymore. And now I've got 9 rats and live in a beautiful place with my partner. And I have a wonderful job, and I published a book of poetry that I always wanted to do and I never thought would have been possible. And I have a beautiful life now. And even if my BPD makes it hard for me to believe that sometimes, I know I do. And I know it's possible because I've done it and I've made it for myself. And I'm giving love to you right now. If you are someone who thinks you have BPD or has been diagnosed, I love you, and you can get through this. You can absolutely do this. It's hard. I know it is so hard. It feels absolutely impossible, and every day is a battle, and I know it's the most horrible feeling in the world to live with that, especially if you don't have anyone there who understands you or wants to help you and you've just got yourself. But I promise you that there is ways to live with this disorder. And if you're a loved one of someone with BPD, please be gentle, please be kind, do your research, and I mean real research, real accurate sources, not Reddit, not horrible sites that demonize BPD. I mean, learn from people with BPD and find people who can help you support the person in your life with BPD. I'm gonna end it there. I'm sending love to everyone watching this. Unless you shit on people with BPD, say goodbye to the rats.